So to introduce myself, so I'm David Boot. I'm one of the co-chairs of the new network. My own interest is a personal one. So I have a lived experience. So my background is working class background from Nottingham. My parents both left school at 16. My dad was a postman for 30 years, and my mum worked in various supermarkets over her working career. So for me, it's a personal passion, a personal interest. And when the opportunity came to be part of this network, it was something I jumped at. Um, just to say a little bit about the network itself. So we have three core aims. One is to raise awareness of social mobility, make sure that people understand what it is and are comfortable talking about it. Secondly, create a safe space for those within rail to talk about their own stories, to talk about what it's meant for them during their career. And then thirdly, to advocate for change. So to talk to our senior leaders and to talk to those across our organisations about what they're doing to improve social mobility. We'll go into more detail on those later in the session, but they're broadly what we want to do as a network. You'll hear today from some of our leadership team. So as I mentioned, I'm a co-chair. Alongside me as co-chairs, we have Elena Gonzalez and Jyoti Jassi, who you'll hear from later in the session, and deputy chairs Ray Fullard and Tom Hall. So this session will be broken into three parts. So the intro and scene setting by me. That will also include hearing from our sponsor in a moment. Then we'll have a bit of a Q&A, talk to some experts within social mobility to get a sense of what it means, how we as a network can work. So delighted to hear from Nina Slingsby from the Social Mobility Leaders Forum. And also Ilaria Zocchi from the Social Mobility Network at the Department for Transport. So real insight into how we as a network can operate within transport. So thank you both for joining us. And that session will be chaired by Tom Hall and Jyoti Jassi when we get to that section of today's launch. And then the third element, we will talk about what next, how you can get involved, how you can be part of our group and help shape what we do next. And that part of our discussion will be led by Elena Gonzalez and Ray Fullard. So I mentioned our sponsor. So quite often employee groups have a senior leader who is responsible for them. I think we've gone slightly one better. So Sir Andrew Haynes, CEO of Network Rail, he's not just our sponsor, he's actually somebody who's driven this. He was very keen that there was a social mobility employee group across rail. So not just within a particular organisation, but across different organisations in rail. So we're really grateful that we've got such a strong advocate and somebody who has a lived experience and a passion for social mobility. So we're really delighted that we've got Sir Andrew Haynes as our sponsor. If the tech can work, we do have a short video from Sir Andrew just welcoming the network, but also explaining his motivation for driving this. So hopefully this will all work beautifully. So Elena, if you can.
Yeah. Let's give it a try. And if someone can give me the heads up, if you can hear it, that'll be brilliant. Oh. Okay, bear with. This was really easy earlier on, but typical. Okay, 2 seconds. I've also got it here just in case I had a plan B. Oh, I don't know if it's because we've got a lot of people on the call, but it's not playing at all. Bear with me.
Whilst you're doing that, Elena, I will just say a few thank you. So, as well as obviously thanking Sir Andrew, we've got to this stage in the process because of help and support by a number of individuals. So, Apeksha, Dante, Pfizer, I think you're all on the call, but thank you so much for the work that you've done across EDI, but really in supporting us in getting this to where we are today. And hopefully we can now hear from
Let's give it a
Andrew
try.
as well.
I know that it's a bit small, but I don't want to tempt my luck. Let's give it a try.
Hi, I'm Andrew Haynes. I'm the Chief Executive at Network Rail, and I'm also the proud sponsor of the industry's new social mobility network named Beyond.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Andrew Haynes. I'm the Chief Executive at Network Rail, and I'm also the proud sponsor of the industry's new social mobility network named Beyond Barriers. I'm passionate about social mobility because it's reflective of my story, my journey, and because I believe it's the missing link in equity, diversity, and inclusion. We want to level the playing field so everyone has a real chance to get ahead in our industry. Now, Beyond Barriers is the first social mobility employee network for everyone in rail, including frontline colleagues. Our aim is that it provides a bridge to connect and empower people from less advantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, and at the same time hold rail leaders like myself accountable for helping improve social mobility. By creating a platform to support people, we can tap into a much bigger pool of potential, and that makes good policy sense, it makes good business sense, and it makes good moral sense. The hand you're given in life can be a lottery, and social mobility is about uniting everyone that wants more than what the lottery has given them. I'm proud of the fact that I was raised in a working class family with a factory worker and shop worker as parents, where money was tight and presents were often handmade or secondhand. I often joke that my parents enjoyed their first foreign holiday only after I'd left home. I went to a pretty tough comprehensive school, and no one in my family had ever gone on to higher education. But my first proper job was in the railway, and one of the key reasons I've ended up having a long and some might say successful career in this industry is because I realized early on that you could prosper regardless of your background. The railway thrives on diversity, including and sometimes especially social diversity. But I'm also realistic. That's not been everyone's experience. And without the right support, future rail leaders might never enter or rise through the industry. Do you know, employees from a family with a professional background are 43% more likely to be at senior level than their working class colleagues. To best ensure a positive future for our railway, we must break down barriers to opportunity so staff from all backgrounds can help take us forward. That's why I'm inviting you to join the Beyond Barriers Network. It doesn't matter what your personal background is, this can be a safe space for discussions and to make connections. If you're passionate about breaking down barriers, please sign up. For those with a lived experience, please consider sharing your story. And if you're a people manager, please make sure your teams think about social mobility in every aspect of the work they do. By working together, I believe rail can become an even bigger engine for positive social change than it has been over its first 200 years.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Elena. So just last thing from me, which is, so obviously you heard from Andrew there about why you should get involved. I will put in the chat a link to our news app page, which leads to our membership form. But when we get to our third session, we'll go into a bit more detail about how you can access that easily. So we are really keen for people to sign up as members. We'll also look to expand our leadership team in the coming weeks and months. And as mentioned there, you may have a lived experience, you may have a personal passion, you may be involved in this from a professional perspective. Whatever it is, we really want you to be involved in the network. And the only thing to add from me is we are launching today. So this is our online launch, and we're delighted to show you our new Beyond Barriers logo, which, as you can see, is behind me. This is really testament to some of the conversations we've had so far about what represents a group within the social mobility space. So we came up with a number of ideas when it came to a name, and I think the logo really represents that. So that's really what we want to do. We want to break down barriers when it comes to social mobility, create a space for people to talk about social mobility, and to also, as Sir Andrew mentions there, challenge our organisations as well to do better. So that's it for the first section, and we'll move on now to a Q&A with some experts within the social mobility space. So I will hand over to Tom and Jyoti for that section. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thanks everybody for joining today. So we have the pleasure today of being joined by colleagues Nina and Ilaria, who we're going to talk to in a panel type session. So whilst we're doing this session, if you've got any questions that you'd like to add or ask, then please put them in the chat and we'll aim to get your questions asked too. Nina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Is the tech working for me? Can you hear?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm Nina Slingsby. I've been working within people and culture all of my career, and have specialised more within diversity, equity, and inclusion in the last 10 years. I spent a secondment at Social Mobility Commission while I was at Accenture, and led the launch of their Employers Toolkit and the Masterclass series, actually, which was during COVID time. So obviously that was when there was a great spotlight on social mobility as well. And since then, I went back to Accenture and launched our Social Mobility Network, which we'll talk a little bit more. And now I've got my own organisation called OAHA, and we specialise in social sustainability, so looking more broadly rather than just aspects of diversity. Thank you very much for asking me to join.
Thanks, Nina. And Ilaria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me as well.
Yeah,
perfect. So I'm Ilaria. I joined the Department for Transport 9 months ago as an apprentice. So I have a background in aviation, as in I was cabin crew for a very long time. And I joined the department as a business administration apprentice. My background, I would say, is a working class background, although it's hard to compare what is considered working class here in the UK to what is considered working class back in Italy. But I would say, yes, that I come from lower socioeconomic background, and the social mobility problem, let's say, like issue, piqued my interest at the beginning of my apprenticeship, because I completed a presentation with KPMG on the situation of social mobility, basically, in UK workplace. And yes, and for this reason, I joined the Social Mobility Network in the Department for Transport, which was launched a few months ago, so it's still at the initial stage. And yes, I'm very glad you invited me to the launch of the Beyond Barriers Network.
Thank you so much, Ilaria. So I'm going to hand over to Tom now, who's going to ask you some questions. But as I mentioned, if anybody else has any questions, then please feel free to put them in the chat.
So yeah, I'm Tom Hall, Social Sustainability Principal at RSSB and one of the Deputy Chairs of Beyond Barriers. So yeah, thank you for that intro, Jyoti, and thank you, Ilaria and Nina, for joining the call. It's fantastic to have your sort of experience, both more recent and sort of stretching back a little bit longer in terms of this activity. So coming discussing different aspects with the group today. So I've got a few questions that we'll sort of run through, a bit of a Q&A, a bit of an informal discussion. Obviously, as Jyoti said as well, if anyone in the audience wants to pop a question into the chat, we'll look to get to that as well. If not, we can obviously come back with sort of further answers at another session, or sort of by email as a bit of a sort of roundup from this session itself. So for me, the conversation today, it'd be great to sort of get your sort of experience, your thoughts, your kind of insights around some of the stuff you've been doing more recently, but also sort of further back in sort of the last few years, mainly around sort of the key aspects of social mobility. And I think we'll sort of wander the sort of conversation around a bit around some of those elements around sort of understanding what it is, sort of the function of these networks, and kind of some of those challenges and barriers and opportunities that you've been able to kind of address or addressing during your sort of work and sort of different activities. So I think one of the sort of key things I'd just like to start off with would be around that aspect of how did you start to raise that understanding, that awareness of what social mobility is through those networks and through the sort of work with different organisations. Nina, should we start with you? Oh, you're on mute.
I am. It's right. I'm conscious of background noise when there's so many on the call. Of course, now I could speak to it from an Accenture point of view, but also from a kind of convening movement point of view, which I think both might be relevant given the obviously the kind of beyond barriers aspect of the work that you're doing. So I'd say initially, when I was at the Social Mobility Commission, one thing which was very poignant was bringing together a number of people across sectors, looking at what their collective objectives were, because clearly, you've got a number of different organisations who are wanting to tackle and work on the same thing. So in theory, your end result is the same. However, how you address that will be different depending on your different business requirements and needs and budgets, etc. So I would certainly say, working in the Social Mobility Commission when I was developing the employer toolkit, so looking at different sectors and the advice to go out to different sectors, was making sure that we had that clarity of what we were trying to achieve. And hence, when you then had challenging conversations along the way based on your different organisational needs, you still were able to revert back to that overall goal. So I'd say definitely, because you're convening across so many different organisations, having that enables you to have those honest, transparent conversations, and at times challenging conversations, because you've still got that, shared collective outcome that you're all trying to look at. I would say from an Accenture's point of view, for us, our main challenge was we were a global organisation. Well, Accenture's a global organisation, and social mobility was only really a topic for the UK. And so to get presence and senior leadership buy-in and everything for a topic which was only relevant for local needs was definitely our challenge. And so we approached it almost sniper movement, in the fact that we had that network which almost was proof of concept. So we knew that if we had more people talking about it and understanding the need for it, we would create a wave of change. And as soon as we started to do that, we then had more senior leadership buy-in. And when they then started to talk about diversity, it wasn't just gender or race, it was also then the socioeconomic aspects of it. So I'd say that was certainly something from an organisation's point of view of how we approach the topic.
That's really fascinating, because we can sort of see what the discussion we've been having already about pulling together sort of vision aspects, the sort of way we're going to deliver things. Like you said, there's the clear sort of divide between sort of shared objectives, quite unique objectives for those organisations. But again, how do we create those similarities, as you've highlighted there? How do we have those difficult but also positive conversations around those different aspects? And even that point you make there about kind of UK versus sort of global policies, there's quite a shift. And actually, similarly with the rail organisations with different structures, some will be global agendas, some will be quite UK based. So again, sort of just highlighting some of those key, so I suppose, opportunities we've got to have to kind of create that sort of discussion point. Ilaria, it would be interesting to see sort of from a DFT, so that sort of more UK focus, particularly around the sort of transport agenda. Where did the sort of key sort of understanding aspects of social mobility come for you in those sort of early conversations with the network?
So there has been a survey back in June 2024 that showed that the high majority of civil service servants that work within the department come from a high social economic background. and especially if we look at senior civil servants. So that was actually what prompted the network in one of the first meetings to try, first of all, and collect data about this, and so we can see where we are going as well in the future, if there is any improvement with so if our impact in the department will improve the situation, and why it is that's the situation right now. So we are doing basically the network at the moment is focusing as well in doing so basically organizing some outreaching events, for example in schools, because there are apprenticeship. I'm an apprentice, and I'm and the apprenticeship lead within my within the network, because we believe in the value of attracting young people, but also non-graduates to the civil service. So yes, outreach events, but also within the department, why people do not progress as much as in other workplaces. So if they come from a lower socioeconomic background, I think it was quite shocking for us, for example, to realize that, especially as I was saying, in the higher positions, people came from specific universities like Oxford, for example. So that's this is the data that we have now. We want to yes. So the aim really of the social mobility network, the department's social mobility network, is to change this environment. And yes, but also continue collecting data, really, because another thing that we've noticed is that for some reason there is still some sort of embarrassment about talking about the social economic background. We usually, during our inductions, we usually ask for social diversity questions, like you know, about religion, ethnic background, and for some reason there are also a couple of questions on socioeconomic background, but for some reason those questions tend not to get completed. So it looks like it doesn't. Yes, there is some sort of shyness in completing that part of the questionnaire. So we're trying to understand why is that, and having discussions about the economic background of everyone. Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Too much.
It's good. It highlights some of those sort of key aspects that this network's going to have to look at in terms of, like you said, sort of baselining that sort of data to understand the current position, and then also sort of understanding those barriers that people have to either sharing their stories in a sort of narrative way or sharing that data. I know it would be interesting to get both your sort of thoughts, Nina, and sort of your background as well around how did you go about sort of challenging some of those kind of data hesitancy sort of aspects.
Do you want to go first?
Oh yeah. I think that we started doing quite recently. As I was saying, the network is quite still very new, which is good because it means as well that we're all very enthusiastic about it. We are trying to go to team meetings and speak with our colleagues to understand why they do not complete that part of the questionnaire. And the feeling is that while there is a lot of discussions on other elements of diversity and inclusion, it feels like the socioeconomic background is not really considered part of the diversity space, and also sensitivity as well. Like I'm looking some of the comments talking about as well. Like I feel like there is we need to reassure our colleagues that no one will see this data apart from HR and the network, but the network will not see your personal responses, just really like percentages and stuff like that. So there is there is that. And another thing as well that I've noticed speaking with my colleagues in this team meetings is that there is also not really a clear idea of what a low socioeconomic background really is. So is it an economic, are we talking about an economic disadvantage, or is more about yes, coming from a working class background, and what does working class background mean? That's something, by the way, that especially when there are colleagues coming from different countries, that's like a big question. And I have to say something, I also had to reflect a bit, because I came to the UK 7 years ago. I come from Italy, and as Nina as well was saying, there are different ways of discussing social mobility really in different countries, and different ideas of what a working class background is. So yeah, there's also this, let's say, this cultural aspect too.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because for us it sort of poses that question that you said around the clarity of what the definition of social mobility is, and the sort of different backgrounds, but also, as you said, the clarity around what data we would as an industry look to collect and what we're going to do with it, and the security and safety aspects behind it. I've noticed that there's quite a few sort of questions pinging up in the chat, so I don't know, Jyoti, do you want to bring any of those into the conversation?
Yeah, we've had some great questions. So we've got a question from Matt Broad, who said, what would you say is the biggest barrier to social mobility across the industry? Is it education or something else? And how does this opportunity go further than ED&I policies, etc.? So Nina, should I pause?
Yeah, I can. And then maybe I'll loop back with some of the data questions. So I work, and I guess because of the nature of the work I do is more social sustainability driven, it's a lot more around systemic change. So I think there are lots of factors which are impacting social mobility within the UK. Education is one of those, as is the economy as a whole. I also believe that a lot of individuals don't necessarily want to have that rags to riches story, and sometimes social mobility is seen as that you're getting a select bunch of individuals from council estates, and then putting them into professional routes for opportunities. And that's not, to me, what this is about. This is about making sure there is opportunities for individuals. So regardless of what they want to do, because not everyone wants to be an MD of an organisation, or a CEO, whatever it is. And so often it's always thought about that, if you are, and there was a couple of points about, train drivers or something like that, that's seen as not a favourable career. I completely disagree, because opportunities are for all, and individuals have different routes of what they want to do. So for me, the key thing is social mobility is about enabling opportunities for individuals, and hence it's not about education or where you came from, or your cultural capital, or your economic social capital. So there's a bigger thing to work on rather than just education, but that is definitely part of it, as is the economy as a whole. And then the other is routes into opportunities. And then the other is, once you're in an organisation, really feeling like you belong and you have that psychological safety, and hence you can progress those careers, whether that's lateral, upwards, whatever it may be. I always see it as almost 4 buckets. So you've got the awareness of the company, the career, the industry, whatever, to enable individuals at school to think, oh, do you know what? Rail industry is quite attractive. I'm going to see what opportunities there are. Then it's about getting in, i.e. those jobs that you apply for, how they're phrased, the wording on job specs when they're going through the recruitment, all of that. That's all about understanding the getting in phase to make it really open for all. Then it's about getting on, i.e. once you've got that opportunity, how organisations are setting individuals up for success. Because often it's like, oh, we've got them in the door now, great, they're going to succeed. It's actually setting up individuals for success. So that's obviously things like your mentorship programs and your support. But crucially, it's not about transforming people into, this kind of individual who might have come from a higher economic background, etc. It's not that at all. The organisation has to change to enable opportunity for all. And then it's those enablers. So we talked about data and the collection of data, and advocacy, and your senior sponsorship and things like that. So just come back into data. A few things I would definitely share with the people on the call is that the Social Mobility Commission has questions they would advise you to ask. That if you only ask one, they advise it to be parents' occupation at the age of 14. I appreciate that's not always relevant if you have a more international workforce, but it is one if you're going to ask, and there's a number of others. I imagine these will change again over time because of the economic shift in the country, and also, you know, just generally there's things in there about free school meals which might not resonate as, you know, things change. So I would definitely go there and look at those if you're starting to collect data. The other thing I would say is your collection of data goes alongside awareness. So to me, this is not collecting data points about someone's background. And sometimes this is quite delicate because actually, unlike asking someone's gender, which is about them, you're asking about their parents or where they were brought up or their friends, which to them is almost not connected, even though it is clearly, because it's, you know, makes you who you are. But it's even more personal, I think, than asking things like gender, and hence why sometimes people don't want to give it. So if you are giving them that awareness that actually this is about breaking down barriers, enabling opportunities for all, regardless of their upbringing, people then start to see the narrative about actually this is more about tackling inequality in the UK than it is about whether I had free schools or not. Therefore, I want to give my data because I know this is going to then help us change a system, as opposed to, you know, oh gosh, I'm not going to get promoted because someone's going to look at my data and realise that I've not gone to a red brick university or whatever. So those are a couple of things I just wanted to point out with some of the questions on data, and hopefully that answered your education question.
Thank you. We've got another question from Mike Evans. So in terms of having a lasting positive impact on social mobility, what do you think is the percentage split between the effectiveness of top-down initiatives, i.e. Senior leaders coming out publicly in support and creating funding opportunities, etc., and bottom-up initiatives such as employee networks and lived experience shared stories? Laria, would you like to take that one?
Yes, it's a bit difficult because our social mobility network is quite young, so we will see probably more later on what are the results of our impact within the department. I would say awareness is always that good. Like, so I always think, I don't know, they're both good ways of increasing, but improving the situation, maybe. Sorry.
I would agree. It's hard to say an actual percentage split because the research isn't out there. However, I can firmly say you need both. So I remember when I was at Accenture, the topic of social mobility had been bandied around for years, but actually it was a few of us getting together to say, do you know what, we're going to do something. And that's when the network came, and that's when we suddenly got more volunteers, and we went from like 6 of us to 600 in 6 months, and then suddenly we had the power of proof that this was important. And you also then had the power of lots of volunteers to start doing community impact work, and people would go out and find stuff and draw more people in. So we had the power, and because we had that, we then had that exec sponsorship to say, hang on, this is something we need to start talking about. And we were then running leadership workshops to talk about cognitive diversity and the importance of that, as opposed to it being around socioeconomic diversity. So we slightly changed it. The other thing I would say is we had a challenge of collecting the data, as I mentioned, and actually we needed the senior leaders to say to the US, we need to collect this data. So if we hadn't have done that, you know, proof of concept, rallying the troops, created enough noise, we wouldn't have got the exec sponsors who ultimately could then press the button to say, this is really important to US, you need to listen, and then it would flow back down. So you need both, definitely need both.
Yeah, it's fascinating as you both talking. I was sort of reflecting on what you were saying, and then that sort of authentic aspect was coming through. The approach, the vision, etc., needs to be authentic and embedded as well within the organisation. As you said, it's all very good trying to sort of establish these networks, but if we're then going to get that sort of follow-on support, that sort of pathway throughout the sector, then that's the sort of organisational response we need to be able to elicit. And as we've said at the start, obviously we've got Andrew Haynes as the sort of industry sponsor for this group. We've got a steering group that's going to set the sort of tone at the top end of the industry, and then we've got a working group that will embed activity into different organisations led by colleagues on the call, but also across GBR and sort of other sort of elements within the railways. And then we've got this network to provide that real sort of groundswell of evidence, dialogue, conversation. And I don't know, just sort of looping back to some of your points there, it'd be great to hear from you both, Ilaria and Nina. Ilaria, you mentioned the sort of going out as a group and sort of going into schools and delivering activities, which again feels very sort of authentic, but also kind of very focused on the sort of topic at hand. And Nina, from your sort of perspective, maybe on a more sort of corporate aspect, how did you sort of encourage policy shifts, I suppose, in some ways, to make sure that the structures behind or within the organisation are then beneficial to creating that sort of ongoing opportunity? Ilaria, you first.
Oh, maybe Nina could go first, so I can like think about my answer.
That's okay. So we had 3 pillars. I mean, we in a corporate world, you love a pillar and a structure, don't you? So please excuse, but it helps, I guess, when you talk about things. So our 3 pillars were about the attraction phase, so ensuring that we were attracting talent from all backgrounds, and clearly we meet socioeconomic backgrounds here. So we worked, and this is the network. We worked very closely with the corporate citizenship team, HR, and senior leaders, I hasten to add, as we were doing all of this. So we looked at talent attraction. So we worked with HR to look at how we could make, thinking about the moments that matter in that recruitment cycle, what we needed to do to make it really inclusive for individuals from a low socioeconomic background. And obviously part of that was that outreach. Which then flowed back into communities, because our community then would do, going into schools and did all the army of people who we need to do that type of thing. So we had that attraction pillar. The next one was about making sure we had that belonging within Accenture. So ensuring that our culture was supportive of individuals and people felt that they could talk about their background, share their stories. There wasn't going to be any fallback or anything like that. So again, the community worked with the talent team, really looking at culture, a sense of belonging, and that's where we ran the awareness classes. So we had one which was very high level, so people could, when they do town halls, I'm sure you do that across the rail industry, when we had town halls or something, we would literally rock up for 10 minutes and just give a high level of what social mobility is. So the sticky floors, sticky ceilings, sticky floors, etc. So about this fact that how long it takes people to get up and everything. So really startling but truth statistics to enable people to really get behind it. And then what we also offered was an hour workshop, which was really interactive, really opened up the opportunity for individuals to share and talk and feel connected by other like-minded individuals, regardless of background, I hasten to add. So we would again be asked to run that on accounts or different projects or whatever. And that really created that sense of belonging. And then the other piece was about that broader impact. So we wanted the community to demonstrate that we ourselves were having external social impact. So I already mentioned about, the community volunteering. So again, any volunteering work, we had a channel. So we had a Teams channel. So any volunteering opportunities, people would just pick it up and share, etc. But each division of Accenture, so I guess you could say each, different organisation across the rail industry, we would work in an agile fashion. So we would have a squad lead who then would have squads who would do work around belonging, talent, and broader society impact. And then they would have volunteers who would ebb and flow depending on their, business as usual work. But that's basically how we disseminated it across.
Thank you. Ilaria, any thoughts or builds on that?
Yeah, so we've been focused mainly on the 2 points of the entrance points within the department and the career progression, right? And for entering the the civil service, we are we are creating, let's say, a calendar of outreach events that we would like to organize. For some reason, this needs to be studied more from from our network. It looks like civil service is not a career that is very well known or considered by people in school, and especially apprenticeships within the civil service. They're not well known, so this is why we are selecting universities for the fast stream, because we also have the fast stream program, and the high schools really for apprenticeships. or as well internships. So all these programs, we're trying to promote them really. And then we about progression within the civil service, because once you get in, is also about moving up really. We're trying to understand if there is so first of all, we're trying to understand if people from lower socioeconomic background tend to get job roles that do not have a progression really, so they do end up like being stuck, let's say, in jobs that do not have any progression perspective, and if it does, why do not progress? So we are organizing mentoring programs, for example, so we can pair we can have someone from a more senior, from like a senior position, basically mentor someone from a lower background that is interested in moving upwards. And yes, also we're discussing a lot about language, because another barrier that we realized within the civil service is that the civil service has a really specific language, both when entering the civil service. I don't know if any of you ever tried to apply for a job within a government department, but there is a very specific language that we use, and a lot of acronyms, for example, and that also can create some sort of barrier, because my personal experience, for example, although I can speak English quite well, there is a lot of technical, let's say, technical language that it is required. So, and I feel as well there is some accent bias going on, well, not only for international, of course, from people from international background, but as well within the UK, maybe people coming from Scotland or other towns, cities that are not London. So there is also this conversation about language, and the I would say the confidence as well then to apply for a senior civil service position, knowing that you do not have that ability to speak the civil service language. I hope I'm making myself clear.
No,
but yeah.
It's just weaving in what you were both saying there, with some of the chat aspects coming through. That sort of element of, changing the perception of the opportunity that the railways provide, making sure that the pathways are there when people come into it. You both mentioned mentoring and sort of community outreach and so on, but at the same time, from the chat, sort of challenging some of those existing behaviours that the industry might be putting out there as a block to these aspects. So weaving those elements together, it's a real sort of interesting feed for us to then be able to understand about, as we start to provide the networks guidance back to industry, what are those sort of key aspects. I was just going to sort of wrap up with one last quick question. It might be quite a short answer from you both, but in terms of, obviously this is the first session we've got today. We've got about 100 people on the call at one point. Obviously there's a lot of passions, a lot of interest. From your experiences, just maybe just one example from both of you, the sort of what worked really well in keeping 100 plus people engaged or focused. I know, Larry, you're at the sort of beginning of the process, but what works? What have you done in the past that delivered a successful sort of outcome? Is it regular events like this? Is it face-to-face activities? I don't know. Be interested, just one quick thought from you both on that one.
Well, surely face-to-face activities. And I think as well, going back to data, I think what sticks in people's minds is like discussions about what the situation is and the data that we have about social mobility within the department. So I'm talking specifically within the department. So I think that's something that really has an impact for what I've seen, like to show what the situation is and the data that we currently have. But yeah, as I was saying, going back face to face as well is like something that really works for us, for example.
Thank you. Nina, your thoughts?
I would say the constant communication. So having a live, whatever platform you use, so whoever your leaders are, or your comms lead, or whoever you is having that constant communication about what you're doing, so people, if they want to volunteer, know what to do. The other, I would say, is your impact. So every quarter we would demonstrate impact. So whatever that was, whether it was quotes from people, whether it was how many schools we'd been into, how many, whatever, is every quarter we would demonstrate the impact we're having. So then people could see it was live, it was real, they were part of a change and a movement, as opposed to just a talk shop.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, impacts, comms, messaging, it's that sort of narrative, isn't it? Both in terms of that data piece, but also that sort of individual aspect. And I think that speaks really well to some of the chat. So just for me to sort of wrap up and say thank you both for being so sort of open and honest in this dialogue. And again, thank you to everyone who's been dropping examples in the chat that are, massively insightful and massively open. So thank you, everybody. Elena, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nina, Ilaria. That was brilliant to listen to you and to hear all the activity in the chat and the engagement. We really, really appreciate that. But first, quick hello. I'm Elena Gonzalez. I'm Social Sustainability Manager at Network Rail and co-chair of Beyond Barriers. And we've got 10 minutes. I promise this is the last stretch. We're going to do a quick session to tell you just a bit more about Beyond Barriers, our vision. And Ray, who is also on the call, and I'm going to let her introduce herself in a minute. She's going to cover a bit of a slide to understand what is that you want to see from us. And this is really, really important. How do you want us to communicate with you as well? Ray, do you want to say hello?
Yep, I can do. Hi everyone, I'm Ray Fullard. I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Manager at RDG. I've worked in the rail industry since 2014, so just over 10 years now. I started in a frontline role, and now I'm a DMI manager, which is my dream job.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ray. And I'm going to attempt my luck again and share the screen. Let's just show you really briefly from current slide. So there you are. So we wanted to show you our vision, and all this is also on the hub, but I'm not going to go through it because it's quite self-explanatory. If I can just pick out just a few items that we really want to bring to your attention, and I think it links to the conversation that we've just had as well as part of the panel. In terms of our vision within raising awareness, I think there are two key elements in here that we really want to come through today. It is about collaboration. It is about listening and learning from each other and work together. It is also about that outreach opportunity. And I think, Nina, you've mentioned it. It's about enabling opportunities. What activities can we support that will help us better connect with communities, with the schools, with the third sector, and break some of those barriers to entry into our industry? So that's a really big sort of element or pillar, if you like, from the vision. But obviously, being an employee network, we want to create safe spaces. And it's actually great to see in the chat people sharing some really personal thoughts and own experiences, because that really, really helps break the taboo. And someone was talking about accents, and I couldn't help but smirk because I was thinking, look at my Spanglish, and I learned English in Wolverhampton, and then I moved to Birmingham. It's probably the mix that you can just imagine being a bit chaotic, but it is me, it is part of my story. And it was so great to see people, talking about their experiences as well. And this is what the network is all about, creating a safe space for you to share your story, for us to learn from each other's experiences, because we know that our postcode, we know that our accent doesn't determine our talent or our worth. So this is going to be a really key part of this network. And obviously, advocacy is such a great word, to be honest. I mean, if you think about, we have got a opportunity to bring industry together. So this is train operating companies, freight, Network Rail, and suppliers to come together and sort of, lead on this change. It does provide a really great voice that can help influence positive change, and we want to contribute towards, you know, creating a railway that is inclusive of everyone. And so it's going to be really, really great to get people on board and to really, you know, harness the potential of the network. I'm really conscious of time, so I'm just going to really briefly show you that as a network, we are not sort of operating on our own. We are part of a bigger program on social mobility. And as you can see, our role there is on advocacy, raising awareness, outreach, creating safe spaces. But we are feeding back a lot to our industry social mobility working group, which is chaired by GBRTT and Network Rail, and they've been a great support as well to get us here, like Dave was saying earlier, in the first place. But we also have some higher governance to hold us into account on the delivery of what we are set out to do, and as part of the steering group. But that's probably enough about governance and vision. All of that is on the hub, and I'm going to pop the links to the hub in a minute. But I think in the last few minutes, what would be great to get from you is a bit of feedback. So Ray, I'm going to stop sharing because I believe you've got this Slido.
Indeed, yeah. I'll just share my screen quickly. So for those of you who've used Slido before, you know what to do. For those of you that haven't, you can either look at the QR code with your phone, or on the laptop, go to slido.com and put in that code 3443782. So the first question is deceptively simple. What would you like to see from us? But we will accept any answers. So that could be from tips on building confidence and interview skills to help you progress through your career. Any ideas on engaging with the front line, because you want to make sure that they're involved with this too. Whether you want to hear from lived experience speakers, and just any topics around social mobility that you would like us to focus on. So I'll give you like 30 seconds to chuck stuff in there. We'll collate it afterwards and pop the word cloud on our LinkedIn page as well. I like that the mentoring has dominated so far. Cool. I'll give you a few more seconds on that one. I was worried no one would want to put anything in, so I'm really glad to see that it's a popular question. Cool. So the next question is, how would you like us to engage with you regularly? So your options are through email, like a regular newsletter, or ad hoc emails when we've got events planned, online, sort of regular like monthly or 6 weekly Teams calls with either panel discussions or Q&A sessions, or in person. So you can rank them in order of preference, and that'd be really super helpful for us as well. And then we've got 4 minutes left. So I'll stop sharing my screen, but you can keep on ranking, and then we can do the wrap up.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ray, and thank you everyone for the feedback. It's 4 minutes to go, so I'm just looking at the other co-chairs in here, but pretty much there's a bit of a really clear call to action from today. I hope that, you know, after hearing the event, you want to be part of the network. You've got the links to the membership form, you've got the links to the app, you can follow us on LinkedIn, but also please help us spread the word. I mean, we are quite new, we are settling in, we are trying to work out what the email address is going to be across the industry. There is still a few things, you know, technical bits and bobs that we have to do. But even if it's just, you know, you're going to the kitchen now to grab a cuppa and you say, what a great presentation that was from Beyond Barriers. I mean, obviously you can say completely the opposite, but please just put a word in, send sort of, you know, the links within your organization. This can only be successful if people are involved. I don't know if anyone else would like to join and add anything.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to say, you know, we're an employee network and everything that we do, we'll do on behalf of our members. So please become a member and be, you know, really honest about what you want to see, what you might be struggling with, what, you know, whether you're a people manager or it's a personal struggle. You know, we're here to listen to you and amplify your voices. So we can only do that if you tell us things. So please join the network and tell us about your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. Well, thank you so much. We'll wrap it there. Hopefully we've answered all the questions. We'll review the chats, but just massive thank you. Join it. You know, this is one of those that is like, is 10 people going to turn up or 1,000? But you know what? We'll settle with 100. That was brilliant. Thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for asking me. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.